subjected to gang rape by as many as 20 soldiers for days or even weeks, most times using nails, rocks, knives, and burning hot metals, inflicting and sometimes irreversible injury on survivors. With the destruction of Tigray's medical infrastructure by the invading forces and the complete blockage and siege of Tigray, survivors of weaponized sexual violence have not had access to immediate medical care they need. Health services such as abortion and contraception that would have been readily available prior to the conflict are practically non-existent. Hence, Tigrayan women and girls have been stripped of their right to choose to get an abortion as a result of a lack of medical and psychological support. Survivors of weaponized sexual violence have been left to carry pregnancies resulting from rape to term to their psychological determinant. The people of Western Tigray have faced ethnic cleansing through systematic killings, weaponized rape, and starvation by the invading Amhara forces. Invading Eritrean forces are still committing violation in Tigray after cessation of hostilities in November 2022, and they continue to occupy areas populated by Irob and Kunama. Irob and Kunama are minorities within minority and must be protected from attacks intended to exterminate them. The international community have failed Tigray year after year, watching in silence as Tigrayans endure the most horrific crimes against humanity. Today, the people of Tigray need your voice more than ever. Do not be silenced and demand accountability and justice for the Tigray genocide victims and the immediate full implementation of the Pretoria Peace Agreement and complete and verified withdrawal of foreign forces from Tigray. And the immediate return and rehabilitation of the millions of internal displaced and refugee Tigrayans to their homes. And lastly, we ask the EU to recognize what has been happening and continue to happen in Tigray as a genocide and hold Ethiopia and Eritrea and Amhara forces accountable. Justice for Tigray!
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 Amhara forces out of Western 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 Tigray!
Eritrean forces out of 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 Tigray!
We demand justice!
We demand justice!
We demand justice!
We demand justice!
Justice for the women of Tigray!
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 Abiy to ICC!
Abiy to ICC!
Abiy to ICC!
Abiy to ICC!
Isaias to ICC!
Isaias to ICC!
Isaias to ICC!
Isaias to ICC!
Invading forces out of Tigray!
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 We demand justice!
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 Call it a genocide!
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 Aid to Tigray!
Aid to Tigray!
Aid to Tigray!
Aid to Tigray!
Medicine to Tigray!
Medicine to Tigray!
Medicine to Tigray!
Medicine to Tigray!
Call it a genocide!
Call it a genocide!
Call it a genocide!
Call it a genocide!
EU, we demand justice!
EU, we demand justice!
EU, we demand justice!
EU, we demand justice!
EU, we demand action!
EU, we demand action!
EU, we demand action!
EU, we demand action!
Tigray deserves justice!
Tigray deserves justice!
Tigray deserves justice!
Tigray deserves justice!
Tigrayan lives matter!
Tigrayan lives matter!
Tigrayan lives matter!
Tigrayan lives matter!
We demand justice!
We demand justice!
We demand justice.
We demand justice.
Call it a genocide.
Call it a genocide.
Call it a genocide.
Call it a genocide.
Hold Abiy Ahmed accountable.
Hold Abiy Ahmed accountable.
Hold Abiy Ahmed accountable.
Hold Abiy Ahmed accountable.
Hold Ethiopia accountable.
Hold Ethiopia accountable.
Hold Eritrea accountable.
Hold Eritrea accountable.
All invading forces out of Tigray. All invading forces out of Tigray. Free Tigray.
Free Tigray.
Free Tigray.
Free Tigray.
Free Tigray.
Free Tigray.
Call it a genocide.
Call it a genocide.
Call it a genocide.
Call it a genocide.
EU, we demand action.
EU, we demand action.
EU, we demand action.
EU, we demand action.
EU, we demand justice.
EU, we demand justice.
Tigray deserves justice.
Tigray deserves justice.
Aid to Tigray.
Aid to Tigray.
Aid to Tigray.
Aid to Tigray.
Stand before you today to address a pressing humanitarian issue that demands our immediate attention and concerted efforts. It has been exactly 1 year since the Pretoria Peace Agreement was signed, putting an end to 2 years of what we would like to call the Tigray genocide. While the guns may have been silenced, the suffering of millions of internally displaced persons or IDPs continues. The Tigray genocide, that began in early November 2020, has displaced countless individuals from their homes. As of December 2021, more than 1 million displaced people have not been able to return home. Half the population is reported to be going hungry, and many schools are occupied by IDPs who are still unable to return to their homes. Well, the situation is intensified by the presence of ex-combatants and victims of sexual violence affected by the trauma of the conflict, all of whom still require humanitarian support. Even more distressing is the persistence of violence in the region, with all of whom still require humanitarian support. Harassment, even more distressing is the persistence of violence in the region, with serious reports of forced displacement. Humanitarian aid has worsened the suffering of particularly against the discovery of diverted aid shipments led to the humanitarian aid has worsened the U.S. government's humanitarian agency. The discovery of diverted aid shipments led to the World Food Program and the U.S. government's humanitarian this critical situation lies in the recent agreement, which includes the restoration of basic services in Tigray, the resumption of humanitarian aid, the withdrawal of Eritrean and Amhara troops, and concurrent disarmament. However, it is imperative that we take immediate action to ensure that these promises are fulfilled. Today marks the third year of the Tigray genocide, and the sufferings of IDPs in Tigray persists due to the suspension of humanitarian aid. It is our moral obligation to ensure that aid reaches those in need, that justice is served, and accountability prevails. We cannot allow this crisis to continue, risking yet another conflict. So we call on EU and the international community to support the return of IDPs in Tigray and the resumption of humanitarian aid to those in need. It is time for action, compassion, and solidarity.